see, here's the site. Again, much smaller, 5 kilometers to the south. It's at Ras Ibn Hani that we find the only known example of a mold for pouring oxhide ingots. Now, these oxhide ingots, we call them oxhide ingots because they sort of look like a skinned cow, you know, with the 4 legs. But really, these are designed to be carried by 2 people. They're handles, right? So one person in the front, one person in the back. And indeed, we have depictions from Egyptian tombs of people carrying these things. The only mold that we have comes from here in Ras Ibn Hani, and it's this copper that is then mixed with tin into bronze that is really the source, the primary source of wealth at Ugarit. So you can actually see some of the tools made out of it here. Evidence for the movement of these ingots come from a series of shipwrecks. I've put them up there, 2 in particular, well actually 2 main ones. The Uluburun shipwreck, which dates to around 1350 BC, and the Cape Gelidonia wreck, which dates to around 1200. We'll take a look at this really quickly. The Uluburun wreck was found off the coast of Turkey, and you can see a reconstruction of it right here. And it's really interesting for a number of reasons. The ship was carrying over 10 tons of copper, 10 tons of these copper ingots, and you can see it being excavated here. All of these stacked ingots as the ship decomposed and all of its cargo spilled out into the sea. In addition to 10 tons of copper, it was also carrying 1 ton of tin, which is the exact ratio that you use to make bronze. So, so that's quite telling in terms of this ship's cargo. The other artifacts found on this ship are quite interesting. It really speaks to the internationalism of shipping in this period. We find swords, for example, these swords here. These are Mycenaean now 2 swords that were used in Mycenae at this time. These are the swords that Hector and Achilles would have wielded in their battles, according to Homer. Very specifically Mycenaean. At the same time, we also find scarabs dating to from Egypt, and a number of other artifacts like glass ingots and wooden writing boards with ivory hinges. This is a ledger and would have been filled with wax, right? So an innovation in writing that now, unlike our tablets, which once you impress your crew manifest or your listing in it, these could actually be erased and then used over and over again. So this was actually found on the Uluburun as well, and probably kept track of many of the objects that were and items that were traded. We get a sense that the Uluburun was on its way to Greece and on its way to Pylos from Ugarit, probably stopping off in Cyprus along the way. And through a number of different techniques, some of the ones we've talked about when we talked about archaeology, things like flotation, things like infrared spectroscopy. The nice thing about shipwrecks is they're underwater. And through these methods and through the state of preservation that's left, because these things don't decompose, we can get a sense of the organics that were carried aboard the Uluburun as well. So in addition to this 1 ton of copper, we find evidence for dates, almonds, acorns, pine cones, pistachios, pomegranates, figs, coriander fruits. Many of these things are not native to the region, things like coriander and safflower, things that are used in making perfume and oils. So there's a nice brisk trade taking place in things like copper ingots, but also organic items to make perfumes. And we'll talk about perfumes next time, specifically those coming from Cyprus, and we can pick up there next time. Any questions? Okay, cool. So I got my office hours today, if you need to swing by for any reason, but Wednesday, Project 2 is due, and enjoy your time up at the museum. I hope you'll find it really interesting. Did they say they're going to let us into the basement? Are they going to let us into the basement, or? Fantastic, great. So you guys are getting access to the basement of the museum, which people don't normally get.